Hey guys, welcome to the June exchange chat. Tonight we are going to talk about running for and applying for and running for the Student Assembly Board of Directors. I'm Brooke McIntosh and I'm your Director of Communications for the Student Assembly, and I'm joined tonight by two members of our nominating committee. So I'm going to give each of them a chance to introduce themselves and tell you guys just a little bit about themselves. So Kate, you can go ahead and start.
Hi everyone, I'm Kate Bianco. I am the current nominating committee chair on the Student Assembly Board of Directors. I served as the nominating committee chair-elect last year. It is a 2-year position. I am from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I just graduated from the University of Pittsburgh, and I'm about to start my first job here in Pittsburgh.
Hey everybody.
Awesome. Now what about you, Jillian?
Yeah, hey, I'm Jillian Carney. I am the current nominating committee member on the Student Assembly Board of Directors. I also just graduated from PTA school from St. Catherine University in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and actually just took a big leap of faith and moved down to Pensacola, Florida to start my first job at an outpatient clinic down here.
Beautiful. So I guess I forgot to mention that I graduated and I started a job on Friday in Towson, Maryland. So I moved from down south to up north. Jillian and I kind of did a switch. So those of you who are joining us on Twitter, make sure that you tweet your questions to us using XChangeSA so that we can answer your questions live. But we're going to go ahead and give these gals a few questions for those who are interested in applying for and running for the Student Assembly Board of Directors. So first of all, guys, what is the first step necessary to become a candidate for the Student Assembly Board of Directors?
So I'll go ahead and take that question. So the first step is going to be to contact one of us, any one of us, and that includes all of the Student Assembly Board of Directors, all 10 of us. It is our job as the Board of Directors to get you involved and connect you with the people that you need to talk to make those next steps. Jillian, myself, and then Scott, who is our current nominating committee chair-elect, we are the people that you need to connect with if you really have a passion for running for the Student Assembly Board of Directors. And once you connect with us, we can kind of talk you through the next steps and let you know what you need to do to kind of get to the place that we are today.
Awesome. So now we know, like we need to contact someone on the nominating committee, but what does it take to run? So what kind of experience do you need to be able to run for the Student Assembly Board of Directors?
I can start with that. Kate might want to add on a couple of things since she's more of a veteran than I am, but I think that nothing is necessarily required. We recommend that you have some past leadership experience. This is a national position, and we are the voice of the Student Assembly. So we do want you to feel comfortable being in a leadership role and kind of taking charge on things. We like to see some diversity in some different things. It doesn't necessarily just have to be, I've been doing stuff in my state chapter. That's great, but we'd like to see some other things too. What did you do in your undergrad? What did you do in your community? What kind of things make you a well-rounded candidate?
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with that, Jillian. So I'll just add on a little bit. The only requirement is that you must be in a good standing with your school, so you cannot be on any academic probation, and then you also must have been an ABTA member for at least 3 months. Really, those are the two very general things that we're all doing as students, hopefully. But other than that, if you're just looking to dive right in, we have had many of past board members, including current board members right now, who this was their first step to getting involved. And they've been wildly successful. So don't feel like you have to do things before you get involved in the Student Assembly Board of Directors. If you have passion, then go for it.
Awesome. So how long does a term for a Student Assembly Board of Directors position run? So now, people know that they're interested. They may have a little bit of experience, may have more, but, how long are people committing for whenever they are applying for the board?
Yeah, so most of the board of directors, 9 of the 10 actually, are committing for 1 full year. So that term starts at National Student Conclave, so I'll put a little plug in for that right now. That's going to be at the end of October this year. It's October 22nd through 24th, and that's going to be in Omaha, Nebraska. It's going to be a phenomenal event. We have a great student committee that is planning that for the students. So elections take place there, and then your term starts on that last day of National Student Conclave. You are sworn in to the Student Assembly Board of Directors, and then from there you have until the following National Student Conclave in 2016. That is for most of the board. Now, there is one position on the board that is a 2-year term. I did mention this previously. So that is my position, the nominating committee chair. So I started last year as the chair-elect, and then I transitioned to the chair position this year. We just keep that position on the board just so that we have some continuity from year to year, so we can make sure that nothing gets lost in the shuffle. But most of the terms are just a year long.
Okay, so you mentioned National Student Conclave. So can you tell students who are interested a little bit about what happens at NSC if they are slated?
Yeah, NSC is an amazing experience if you're slated as a candidate. It's an amazing experience anyway for any student going. I mean, I brought some people from my past school that had never been to a conference and they fell in love. But as a candidate, you're going to go and you're going to promote being involved in the student assembly. One thing that I personally love, because I'm really not a competitive person, is that we're not really allowed to campaign for ourselves. I'm not going to walk up to you with a big, like, I love Jillian button, you know, and say, you know, please vote for me. I'm going to say, what are you involved in? You know, what are you passionate about? How can we as the Student Assembly, how can we get you involved in your association, and how can we move this profession forward? And I think that that's just a really amazing tool. So candidates are going to come and they're going to talk to as many students as they possibly can. They're going to go around, they're going to meet students from all over the country and make some really great connections. Then we're going to do some interviews. So you go up with the other people that you're running with for your specific position. So like Brooke, you went up with your people from the DOCs, and we ask you a question in front of the people who are attending at the National Student Conclave, and you have a certain amount of time to answer that question. And then from there, elections happen.
Awesome. Kate, do you have anything to add?
I will add something. So we actually, this year, are transitioning to online voting, or electronic voting, I should say, for the first time. So this is in hopes to get a bigger voter turnout at NSC. So in order to vote for the Student Assembly Board of Directors, you have to be present at NSC. And in previous years, it has always been a paper ballot. And sometimes they get lost and things like that. And so our voter turnout has been typically between 50 and 60%. But this year, it's going to be included as part of the app for NSC, so make sure you keep an eye out for that. So it'll be an easy way for you to go on as the candidates are doing their interviews and kind of scroll through and read about each candidate and make your informed decision on who you would like to be part of the Student Assembly Board of Directors.
Awesome. So I know I jumped a little bit ahead because I'm super excited for NSC as well, but so let's back up a little bit. So let's talk about the application itself. Where can students find the application? What is on the application? Just tell us a little bit about the application process.
Absolutely. So applications can be found on the website. It's under the current students page. If you go under leadership, and then there will be a tab that takes you to the elections page. And on there you're going to find a few different forms. The first form is going to be a consent to serve form. And that is basically just who wants to apply filling out saying what position they would like to run for, and basically saying that I commit that if I am slated for the Student Assembly Board of Directors, that I will fulfill the full responsibilities of that position. You're also going to find a nomination form on the website, and that nomination form has to be filled out by an APTA member. That is the only qualification that they have to have. On that form, they'll fill out their APTA membership number, and then they can send that over. The contact information is on that sheet. It's going to be studentassembly@apta.org. And they can send that over to kind of officially nominate you for the Board of Directors. And then the last thing is kind of the most important, is the candidate questionnaire, or the nominee questionnaire, I should say. So there's some questions on there that we just kind of want to get to know you a little bit more. So we ask you about some goals that you have for the future of the Student Assembly, and things like that in your past experiences. And then we also ask that you provide your most recent resume, just so that we can kind of get the whole look of what you are, because that's kind of what we want to see. We want to see what type of person you are and what passions that you have for this board. The great thing is we always have 10 completely different minds on this board, and it makes it kind of the best that it can be. So from there, all of that is going to be due on July 15th. So that is coming up in about exactly a month from today, so that's perfect. So you have 30 days to fill out that application and send it over to studentassembly@abta.org. And then from there, the three of us, Jillian, Scott, and I, the nominating committee, will take a look at those applications, and then we'll be in contact with all the applicants after that.
Awesome. So I'm going to take a break from all of my questions, and I'm going to ask some from Twitter. We have a question from Rachel German, or at RJ Gattagoni, and she asked, what is the time commitment like for applying?
Go ahead, Jillian.
For the application process, if you're looking at the questionnaire, it's really how much time you put into it. So, you know, you can put in an hour, you can put in days, you know, into the actual application itself. Applications, like Kate said, are due July 15, and then from there we'll be in touch with you. The interview process that we do typically takes about 15 to 20 minutes, and then from there you'd go to NSC if you were slated as a candidate from there. So the actual applying process, not a ton of time outside of the general application until you get to NSC. As far as if we're talking time commitment for being on the board, that's definitely a different question.
So I'll
okay, so we'll get to that. Wait, go ahead. Do you want to go with that one, Kate?
I was just going to go ahead and answer that question real quick. So for that, you can kind of look on the website. We do have a form on there that says position descriptions. And under that form with each position, it kind of gives a very general time commitment. But something that I want you to consider is to reach out to that current board member that is in that position that you're interested in. Because they are going to have the best outlook on what the actual time commitment is like. So, for example, if you're looking at running for the Director of Communication or applying for the Director of Communication position, I encourage you to email Brooke and kind of ask her, what is your week like as the Director of Communication on the Student Assembly Board of Directors? Because as students, obviously, your first priority is going to be your academics. So just make sure that you can kind of reach out and see, is this something that I can balance? We all know that as PT students, we are champions at time management. So it's just something else to consider.
Awesome. So we have another question from Twitter, and this is from Kenneth Felder at Kenneth Felder 17. And he asked, when going through the positions and trying to find which position fits, any advice on how to decide if you're stuck between two?
Absolutely. So we actually have a lot of candidates that end up having that question. They find kind of two different positions that pique their interests, and they're just kind of arguing with themselves about what kind of fits you best. Now, I will tell you that as a nominating committee, it is our job to look at your application, and then as we go through the interview process, to see what position you would fit best in. So there are actually 3 or 4 current board members that applied for a different position than they were actually slated for. So because we have been in this position, we can kind of see what qualities are needed for each different position on the board. So we take that as a nominating committee, and we look at you and your application and say, you know, I think this person has these qualities and they'll fit better kind of in this spot. So for you personally, Kenneth, if you're looking kind of between 2 different positions, I would recommend that you mark down both of those. There is no limit to how many boxes you can check in terms of positions. And then from there, we can kind of take a look and see where you would fit best.
And I, for one, can speak to that. I applied for the Director of Membership, and I ended up in the Director of Communications position, which most people who know me know that that obviously fits my personality as well as my interest. And so I like to think that the NomCom last year knew me a little bit better than I knew myself. So trust in the process. That's something that I like to tell a lot of people whenever they kind of ask me that question, whenever they found out, you know, that was a personal experience of mine. So another question that we have from Twitter comes from Miguel, and it is, do you have to be present at NSC in order to vote? Or can students who do not have means to attend from your school vote?
You do have to be present at NSC to vote. So one of the reasons that we do that is that the students, did take the time to come out to NSC and watch the candidates. You have the ability to meet the candidates there. You have the ability to talk to them, hear their stories, get to know who they are. I mean, these are the people that are representing you, so you do want to make sure that you love who they are. And I think that it's true for a lot of students that maybe they thought that they were going to vote one way, and then after talking to one of the students and meeting them and hearing what they're passionate about and then hearing them do the interview, they change their mind. So we do have it where you do have to be at NSC to vote.
Awesome. So we are going to move on to another question. So, we're talking about attending NSC in order to vote. So if you are slated and you do end up winning, do you have to attend all conferences?
Yes. So one of your duties as a member of the Student Assembly Board of Directors is to attend all national conferences. So that is going to include the combined sections meeting, which is actually going to be in Anaheim this year, Anaheim, California. That takes place at the beginning of February. And then after that, you have to attend APTA Next, which is going to be in Nashville, which happens at the, sorry, my brain slipped for a second there, which happens at the beginning of June. And then you will also attend the National Student Conclave the following year, which is in 2016. You are required to be present at all of those, just so that you can kind of be the voice for the Student Assembly, as well as we have our board meetings at those events as well. And then there is one other conference, I should say. It's not an official national conference, but it's the Federal Advocacy Forum. That is not required as a member of the Student Assembly Board of Directors because that conference is not funded by the APTA, but it is recommended that all Student Assembly Board of Directors members do their best to get to that event because it is so important to be an advocate for our profession.
Awesome. I completely agree. So next question. Oh, so earlier we were talking about the nomination form. So can you fill out the nomination form yourself? That was a question that popped up, and I cannot see who tweeted that. I lost it. But so do you have to have someone else to submit it, or can you submit it yourself?
Kate, you might want to help me out on this one. I believe that you maybe could put in your general information, but someone else does have to nominate you, and they have to be an APTA member. They do not have to be a professor. They do not have to be your clinical instructor. If you have a really good connection with your state chapter and someone that's there, they can definitely fill out that nomination form for you and send it in.
That is correct, Jillian. They just have to be an APTA member. You can fill out everything else for them, and then they just have to fill out their APTA member number and sign that form, and they have to send that over to us. You cannot fill it out yourself, unfortunately.
Okay, and I apologize to whoever asked that on Twitter. We were getting a lot of tweets coming in, so I can't find it right this second. But hope that answered your question. If not, tweet us again. So Rachel German has another question. Thank you, Rachel, for all of your phenomenal questions. And this is something that I was just about to ask the girls. What is the best part of being on the Student Assembly Board of Directors? I'll let you guys go first, but I'm going to answer this one too.
I will go ahead and go first on this. I have had the pleasure of doing this for almost 2 years now. And I would say the best thing about being on the Student Assembly Board of Directors is just the connections that you're able to make. You know, professionally and personally, the Board of Directors kind of becomes your second family because we are constantly in communication. And then my professional network has expanded unbelievably. It amazes me the people that I have gotten to, interact with and talk to at conferences, and then they remember you at the next conference, and it just helps in terms of your future. I now have this professional network around me that if I were to move across the country, I would be able to kind of connect with people out there that I've met at conferences or that I've met on Twitter, or fellow students that I've met as well. So I would just say that kind of the network that I have developed in the past year and a half.
Yeah, and I'm going to sound like a broken record because that is, when she said second family, it's like, okay, I'm the emotional one of the group, so of course I get all, freak out and teary a little bit. But it's true, the network that you create with everyone around you is so amazing. And even though PT is big here in the U.S. and we do a lot of really amazing things, it's a small community, and we just see each other at all the conferences, and we run into each other places. And this is so funny that this chat is tonight, because I just had a friend who's having some issues and just started a job, and the clinic is closing, and she's only been there 2 weeks, and I reached out to some of the people in my PT family, and they responded, and they're helping her out, and everyone just comes together, and I would have none of that if I would not have been participating on the national level. And then I think for me a big thing too is, being a leader is fun, and we get to do a lot of really cool things, but I think something that's been really valuable to me is I've kind of had to learn the hard parts of leadership too. I've had to make some tough decisions, and I've had to say no, and I've had to do some things that are a little bit out of my comfort zone that come with bigger leadership responsibilities, and that's been so valuable to me. And even though sometimes it's stressful and sometimes it's a little bit uncomfortable, I've loved that, and that's been something that I will definitely take away.
So I guess there's no need in me even speaking to, to why I love, being a part of the Student Assembly Board of Directors and what my favorite parts are. It's most definitely the fact that we're a family, and we have the opportunity to meet and mingle and get to know. It's not even just meeting people, it's actually getting to know them on a personal basis, and like Kate said, and Jillian reiterated, but just really building your professional network. And we are a small profession in the grand scheme of things, and so it's just really awesome, getting to know members of your PT family. And I'm turning all Jillian for a second. I'm going to get sad because then I realized that half of our terms are already over, a little bit more than half. So the next group will be great. You guys who are all listening, hope you all apply, and hope you're even better than we are. But we have another questions coming from Twitter. Let's switch gears a little bit. This comes from Elizabeth on Twitter @NixDPT, and she asked, besides the national conferences, how often does the Student Assembly meet online? For example, Google Chat or Skype. And I don't think she's talking about our daily GroupMe chats either.
Yeah,
I think she means like official meetings.
Yeah, official meetings. We meet once a month for our board meetings, and they can range, well, I mean, ours have typically been about 2 hours. But what's really nice is that we try and schedule them in advance as much as we can, but if something comes up for someone, we really make it work. We do the whole doodle thing so we can figure out when everyone, is available for a chunk of time. But once a month we get together. There has been times where we've kind of had some emergency situations that we've had to meet more, but that doesn't happen very often. And then we do communicate a lot through GroupMe, but obviously emailing is a really big deal. We do have a rule that we follow pretty diligently, that within 48 hours we need to be getting back to each other on stuff, even if it's like, I don't have an answer for you now, I will get it to you later. We try and be in constant communication with one another because we always have a lot of stuff going on.
Awesome, yes, and like I said, if you do not respond to emails, you will be berated on GroupMe to answer someone's emails, so don't think you're getting out that easy. So we have some more questions from Twitter, and I'm sorry if I butcher you guys' names. I'm not really good at this, but this comes from Ryan Madry, and he asked, how many candidates get slated for each position?
Yes, so I'll go ahead and take that question. So according to our bylaws state that we must slate at least 3 candidates if possible, depending on the applications. So in the past, it has been typical that we have slated 3 candidates per position, with the exception of the SBTA delegate, where we typically have 2 applicants. We're hoping to up that this year. And then actually last year we did have 2 positions that we slated 4 candidates for each position. Now that is all dependent on the applications and the interviews. We don't have any official qualifications for our board members and for our positions. However, we just kind of look at your passion and your previous experience and just your excitement for getting involved, and that's typically what we base that on.
Awesome. So we have another question that's coming in from Twitter, and this is from Luke Davidson, SPT, at Luke Davidson 5, and he asked, do the board members of the Student Assembly Board of Directors have opportunities to meet up other than at conferences, or is it mainly long distance?
Oh, that makes me so sad. It's mainly long distance for us because we are all over the country. Of course, all of us want to get together all the time, but conferences is definitely, that's our time to come together, other than on Google Hangout or Skype. So if we actually want to meet up in person other than at conferences, that's something that we would do on our own. It wouldn't necessarily be something that would be APTA organized.
Yes, yes, I agree. I wish we got more chances to be able to see each other, but like I said before, we are in constant contact, so that helps with the FOMO and the long distance relationships that we have. Well, that kind of sounded weird. Long distance board relationships that we have.
True.
So, so I have a question. So, what if a student doesn't feel like they're ready to apply this year? You know, maybe they don't feel like they have enough experience, or maybe they have, you know, they're in their first year, and their first year is known to be really hard. What steps would you say for a student to take who might be ready for next year and not this year?
Absolutely. So if you feel like you're not ready, some things that you can do is definitely keep in contact with us. As a nominating committee and as a Student Assembly Board of Directors, it is our job to get you involved in any way, whether that be at your state level or at your even at your school. Or within kind of just your area of where your school's located. We're not just here to talk about the national level. We're here to talk about student involvement all the way from top to bottom. So some opportunities that I would recommend that you get involved with between years if you're looking to apply for next year is definitely look at our project committees. Our project committees start typically in November or December. They are decided upon by the Student Assembly Board of Directors and what projects that they're going to be working on for the year. And with each of those project committees, there is a chair of that committee, and then that chair has members. We also have some project committees this year that have co-chairs. That is actually how I originally got involved. My first year, I was the National Student Conclave Project Committee Chair. And I got to work with a group of about 7 or 8 students, and we got to work with APTA staff and plan National Student Conclave. We got to work on the programming and the different sessions that were going on and the networking events to make sure that it was a successful event for students. So I definitely recommend looking at our project committees because there's about a 99% chance that you will find something that you want to get involved in. So take a look at those on the website now if you're interested in something like that, and then reach out and we can see what we can do to get you involved right now. And then those applications for the chairs will come out in usually December, maybe even into a little bit of January. Other than that, look to your core ambassador in your state. Every state, almost, has a core ambassador that is in charge of basically being the communication from the Student Assembly Board of Directors. You're also welcome to reach out directly to us, but that core ambassador has a lot of information for you, and they may even be the president of your student SIG at your state level. So that's just another way that you can go ahead and get involved, and then really just try and get your classmates involved. If you take this next year to get a group of classmates to come to NSC the following year, you are making a huge step. You know, as soon as you're able to attend a national conference, I 99% guarantee that you will never miss another one because they are such phenomenal events. So just keep continuing to kind of push that involvement and just keep in contact with us. And we're here to kind of help you get involved in any way.
Awesome. So we're going to keep rolling because we only have 30 minutes left and we have a lot of questions coming in. So one of the next questions, and I'm sorry, Kayla, if I butcher your last name, but this is from Kayla Kekison. Sorry, Kayla. And she says, how do you stay in tune with the needs of students on a national level? And I can speak to that a little bit. As the Director of Communications, one of my main duties is to create and maintain as many lines of communication between students and our core ambassadors and our project committees and the board as a whole. So we utilize a lot of different lines, you know, from meeting students at conferences to social media to our emails. I mean, we have business cards, and how many do we get, Kate?
We get
How many business cards do you get? 500, and we've been to 2 conferences, and I maybe have 50 left. So, I mean, just through our personal contact information, we really just try to keep open lines of communication between ourselves and the students, so the students feel free to come to us with ideas, or just to chat. Do you guys have anything to add to that?
Where is Rob Hofschulte when we need him? That's my.
Rob, jump on and talk to me.
Artist communication. Rob, get in on this. So Rob Hofschulte is our vice president, and he is the Loop Communication Network master. So the Loop Communication Network, that's where our core ambassadors come in. That's where your state chapter student special interest groups come in. And that Loop Communication Network filters in conversations from us up at the board, in between you at your state level. So if, like Brooke said, and I'm pretty sure Rob just posted something about core ambassadors on Twitter, like, get in touch with your core ambassador or get in touch with us. Like, we are accessible, we're not some crazy far away group, kind of one of the biggest things that I think is so great about us being separated is that we might be in your state or we might be really near you. So just get in touch with us.
Awesome. So like I said, the questions are rolling in, so we're going to keep going. So Jennifer asked a question on Twitter. And she says, what is the most challenging aspect of being on the Student Assembly Board of Directors?
Oh, I'll take it one.
I was going to say, I think any of us, we may all have different points of view too, so you can go ahead and start, Kate. Ooh, and my mic's not on. Go ahead.
So I am definitely going to say time management. It's quite a process of transitioning into the Board of Directors and balancing your academic coursework as well. However, for me personally, the reason that I kind of did it is the busier that I am, the more organized that I am, so that I can kind of schedule out my time slots. But time management still is tough. So, just making sure that you're on top of things, especially emails, making sure you check into that at least once a day, because you don't want to come home and be overloaded by, 20 emails in your inbox that you have to respond to within the next 48 hours. And just making sure that you still keep up with some of the fun things in your life as well. That's one thing that, I'll steal this from Fred, our president on the Student Assembly Board of Directors. He was given some advice from a previous board president that, you always want to keep something, whether that's your daily exercise, whether that's reading before you go to bed. You want to keep that. Don't lose that, if you become involved on any level and you find yourself really busy, so just make sure that you keep those moments for yourself so that you stay sane. It is all worth it in the end, but time management, I would say, is definitely the most difficult for me personally.
Jillian, do you want to go? Or I can go ahead and go. I definitely think that time management is a really big deal. Whenever you apply and you have your transition meeting and you're like, oh, okay, I got this. And then actually my position last year, Meg had my position, but she was the director. And then this year it was split into director of communications and membership. So I'm really not sure how Meg did it all last year. So mad props to you, Meg. But after you have your transition meeting, your board buddy, I don't know, whatever you want to call them, is still there for you. But then all of a sudden it's your job. And so, taking on the reins, and then you realize, oh, well, I have an exam tomorrow, but I have to run an exchange essay chat. Oh, and I have a board meeting the next day. So it is all about balance. And there was one more thing I was going to say. Also getting attached to the board of directors and the fact that it's only a one-year position, I think that is very challenging. You set out with your goals for the year, and that's something we kind of changed up this year with doing a strategic plan, something that can go for many years to come, so that we can look back as new professionals and see initiatives that we started a few years back actually happening. So I think that is something that will still be a little challenging, is maybe like leaving your babies behind. But of course, thanks to the NOMCOM, we're going to have a phenomenal board to come behind us and finish the job. What about you, Jillian?
Gosh, I just think you guys said it perfectly, so I'm not even going to add on to it.
All right. So yeah, Jillian's getting a little blue over there. It's okay, Jillian.
I know, I am. I am. I gotta stop.
Okay, so we have another question from Twitter, and this one's a little heavy. Matthew St. John, we just met you at Next, and here you are throwing us the big dog question. So Matthew asked, what legacy will you leave behind, and how can someone running continue towards your vision and the vision of the APTA? And we just kind of answered that, but Kate or Jillian, I'll let you guys take it a little further.
Yeah, so I think, and the only reason that I'm speaking about this right now, Brooke, is because you just kind of brought it up. So talking about our strategic plan. So our board spent ridiculous hours on this new strategic plan that we came up with, and it's this beautiful, they gave it to us in a beautiful little envelope. It's, you know, it's like sacred. So I think that taking those
many hours were put into that envelope.
Hours, I mean months, really. What, 2.5 months? Our first 2.5 months of being a board together was worked. You know, we were working on that strategic plan. So that's kind of like our legacy. I remember at our just board meeting at Next, we were talking about how our board is kind of defined by a lot of heavy lifting. So we've kind of set this foundation for future boards through this strategic plan, and it's been this amazing process to watch. And just looking at the goals that we've come up with and seeing that boards that are going to come, you know, after us are going to be able to take these and bring them to life, you know. And we've got some pretty cool things up our sleeves that we have not brought forward yet that these future boards are going to be able to just take a hold of and run with. And I think that that is definitely the biggest legacy. And then I think the other thing is us staying involved as new professionals. So I'm going to give a little shout out to the new professionals. Like, you know, here we are sitting here, all three of us are graduated. A number of us on the board are graduating or getting ready to. And staying involved, you know, what kind of example do we set by being so involved as students and then immediately moving forward and getting involved in our state chapters and getting out of our comfort zones, even though we're starting new jobs, new places, you know, new faces, you know, but putting ourselves out there and being like, yeah, I was really involved as a student, and I want to continue to be involved. So I think that that's the best way to keep our vision moving forward. I mean, we're transforming society, and how are we going to do that if we stop after being students?
I completely agree. So we have another question from Kenneth Felder, and he asked, and we kind of touched on this a little bit, but we can talk about it a little bit more. After elections, is there a brief oversight period by current board members to help the transition?
There is, yes.
Kate, do you mind if I do this one?
Yeah, you can.
Sorry. Okay, so I've actually kind of been talking to a couple people on our board about this transition process because I've become a little bit freakish about it. I did a lot of nominating committee stuff when I was in my undergrad, and I just really want to see this transition process really flourish with us. I think that our board is just passionate about people taking our strategic plan and moving forward, and so right after elections happen, the day after, we get together with the new board, us and the new board, and we talk about what they need to do for the next year. And Kate, I'll let you expand on that meeting, but I just want to say that we're really working on making that process a really good thing. Brooke mentioned a little bit about the mentorship from the person that was there before you, and I think that there's a great path that we're going down to make that transition really good. So Kate, why don't you talk about the meeting since you've kind of organized it before?
Yeah, absolutely. So that meeting happens on Sunday after elections that happen on Saturday. And we basically get the whole morning to sit down with the two boards together and kind of just give away all of the information that we have so that the next board can immediately start running with that information, since they do only have that year-long term. So what we do is we kind of sit down position to position. So I got to sit down with Scott last year and kind of talk him through what I did as the nominating committee chair-elect. And we pass on all of our, our emails, all of that information to make sure that that person is ready to go. And then we kind of talk in general about what the board did. So we'll talk about kind of what we've accomplished in this year, and then things that we didn't exactly get accomplished but that we started, because we always want to continue to build on new projects so that we can kind of pass those on to the new board and say, you guys can do whatever you want with this. If it's something you want to continue, please absolutely continue and ask questions, because we're here as resources. Or if it's something that they think, we're not sure how this is going to go yet, they're more than welcome to kind of set it to the side for the moment. So that's kind of what I like about the transition, is that you bring in these 10 brand new minds that get a fresh look at the student assembly. For them to come in and say, I have these goals and this is how I'm going to accomplish them. And I encourage you that, if you are to apply and if you are slated, hold on to those goals and make sure that you bring them out, in your first meeting. As soon as you talk to at that first board meeting, that transition meeting, make sure you say, hey, I have these ideas and this is what I want to do and this is how I want to do them. The APTA staff that we work with is unbelievable in helping us accomplish what we want to accomplish on this board. And they're, a project is never too big for them. They may say, let's rework this a little bit, but they always kind of help us to reach those goals. So that transition meeting is all about just making sure that information is passed along and that new board is ready to hit the ground running.
Yep, I completely agree. So we're going to take a few more questions from Twitter. Miguel has another question, and he asked, how often does the Student Assembly Board of Directors conference in APTA staff about national student concerns? And I'll just answer that one really quick so that we can move on to the next question. But every single one of our Board of Directors meetings, we have our board liaison from the big board. So we're the little board. We have ours. Ours is Janine Gunn. She's phenomenal. She is there to answer any questions for us all the time. But we definitely conference her in at least once a month into our big board or into our little board meetings. So we have another question on Twitter, and this is from Ryan Madry again. He said, are any of you planning on getting involved in the APTA Board of Directors after serving on the Student Assembly Board of Directors? And I know personally, we and the rest of the board knows my thoughts on this. I'm planning to be the next Sue Griffin. I would like to be Madam Speaker. So yes, that is definitely in my plans for the future, and I'm almost positive it's in everyone else's. Yes, guys?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Count me in.
Whether that be, in the next 15 to 20 years, but it's something that I definitely have a goal for myself of, just making sure I stay involved in any way possible. That's just, I know Jillian hit on this a little bit earlier in terms of the transition to new professionals, but also just something as you're considering this opportunity and as you're talking to other students, just constantly, remind them not to lose their passion and not to lose this drive that they have for the APTA when they do that transition to new professionals, because we just have such a huge drop-off from student membership into, our professionals. We only have 30% of the market share of physical therapists that are members of the APTA. And we have to up that number if we want to make big moves in our profession. And our students are constantly having that passion and driving that forward. And I just, I want it to be a big goal as every student who is currently an APTA member and who are even not APTA members just yet, to realize that that's something that they have to continue. Is just keeping that involvement as a new professional and as you continue on in your career.
Drop the mic.
Drop the knowledge tonight. Okay, so you were bringing all the questions tonight. I love this. He asked, how much outside of the classroom knowledge do you think you've learned about the profession from serving?
All of the outside classroom knowledge. All of the knowledge. All of the knowledge.
All of the knowledge.
I mean, we learned some in our classroom experiences, but how can you really know unless you experience it? I think about my classmates or other students that I met who maybe have not experienced going to conferences or spending time in the House of Delegates or spending time, looking through documents that the APTA sends out, between our PT Journal and the PT News and everything. And how can you really know what's happening in your association if you don't go and experience it and jump right in? How do you gain that knowledge? It's like, think about it like being in the clinic. How much more do you learn about being on clinicals than what you learned reading out of the book? The book maybe gives you the foundation for it, but the real knowledge comes from being on your clinical experiences. So, I mean, that's my personal opinion. I've learned way more in my clinicals than I did in the classroom. So, and that's exactly how I feel about being involved in the APTA and versus what I learned about the APTA in class.
Absolutely.
I completely agree. Yep. I know personally I have extended my professional network about a million times. Being involved is also how I got my first job, and like Julian was saying earlier, it's the case for a lot of people as well. So it's definitely a big deal. Kate, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you.
No, you're okay. I'll just add on to that as well in terms of outside the classroom experience and professional development. You just get a lot of leadership experience and, learning to be extremely open-minded and just learning different leadership styles. The 9 other people on this board think completely differently than I do, and I am beyond thankful for that. But they have just kind of opened my mind into considering so many different situations when we're bringing on a new project and things like that, and just kind of you're constantly being pushed to be a better person. And that's one thing that I've taken out of this experience is just kind of that, you always have to look around you and see what opportunities are there and listen to what other people have to say. And so that's kind of been my outside the classroom experience, is being able to continually develop, my professionalism and my networking.
I completely agree. So guys, we have about 15 minutes left to take your questions. So if you're joining us on Twitter as well, please make sure to use the hashtag #XChangeSA so that we can get to your questions. I just lost the question that I had, and I apologize to whoever it was that just tweeted it, but they asked, I can't remember what the exact words were, but it was pretty much, we talked about what our favorite part of being on the board was, but what was your favorite part about running for the board, like the actual process of running?
I can go ahead and start that question, Julian. You'll probably have a different answer than I do. My favorite part of running for the Student Assembly Board of Directors. So I ran in Louisville, Kentucky. So that was NSC 2013 now. Oh boy. So my favorite part was just honestly talking to every single student that I possibly could. Like Julian mentioned earlier, we don't allow any official campaigning when you're running for the Student Assembly Board of Directors, because we want to reduce personal bias and just honestly promote informed voting, just kind of always pushing the students to go and look at all of the candidate statements and talk to every candidate and see who they think is best fit for that board of directors. But just being able to walk around the exhibit hall and walk through the different opening sessions and such, and just get to talk to every student and say, why are you here? Where are you from? Is this your first conference? What pushed you to be here? Because that's when you begin those connections. The connections that you make now as students, that's your professional network in 10 years. So that was my favorite part, because the people that I met, when I was running for the Student Assembly Board are still some of my very good friends today, and I'm so thankful for that because they've helped me along the way.
Beautiful.
I completely agree, and I add to that too. I was friends with a few of the people who had applied for the Student Assembly or who were slated for the board when I was. But also, how many people were slated with us? 30, 40, 30 altogether maybe? How many?
29. Yeah.
Yes. So you were with 29 people who are just as passionate, if not more so, than you are. And it is I'm not going to lie, it is not an easy few days. It is exhausting, but it is so much fun. And getting to become friends with those 29 people. And I made some of my closest friends out of the people who I ran against. And it got to the point where at the very the day that everyone voted and it was about to be announced, I was completely okay with any of the other phenomenal ladies that I ran with winning. So really just getting to know the candidates that you're slating with, and those people become some of your best friends. On top of all the other students that you get to meet when you're at NSC and you're running. But I wouldn't trade any of the people that I met along the way for the world. So we have a few more questions that are coming in. So Ryan asked, have you run into any trouble leaving clinicals to attend conferences?
Personally, I have not. My school has been great in making sure that those opportunities are available. From my experience in the two boards that I've been on, most schools, they recognize that you're on a national board. You're the student representation for all 25,000 students that are part of the ABTA, and they've all been very understanding in saying that you're taking this time to go develop your professional network and continue your leadership development as well. So personally, I have not run into any issues.
Ditto.
Yeah, I haven't either. I started a clinical, and then it was the first week of my clinical, and then we had orientation the last few days of the very first week of clinic, and my CI was so pumped for me to go and come back, and talk to him about it, and tell him all about the process. And then I was actually on rotation for CSM as well, and I had to miss quite a few days for that. And then actually I was kind of talking to my employer whenever I was looking for a start date, starting between next or when next was over, and they were phenomenal and kind of work with me. So clinical instructors, jobs, teachers, I think anyone who is kind of in your corner and ready for you to push to the next level will definitely support you in those decisions. So I don't think any of us have had any problems. I have another question. Hold on. Okay. We have just a few minutes left, so I'm trying to pull them all up, and I'm losing some of them. I'm sorry. Okay, so here's a question, and it's, what advice do you have as far as choosing a position to apply for that may be right for me? Not me personally, just someone else.
So I can talk to that. So I think, and I'm not putting this on anyone, but I think I was kind of expected to run for a certain position based on the fact that I was a PTA. And when I looked at that position, even though I find it really interesting, the SPTA delegate, it's an amazing position. Tyler King is a rock star. It did not feel like it was something that I could be really good at. I just really felt like somebody else had the talents to take that position and be amazing. And so what I did is I read through all of the position descriptions, and the nominating committee member just jumped out at me. It felt right. And so what I think that you need to look for is what's something you're good at. What do you like to do? Like for nominating committee, our job is to talk to people. Not that everybody on the board doesn't talk to people, but we're trying to help people foster their passions and run for this board or get involved in any way that they possibly can. So that's something that I like to do. I like to foster things in people. I like to figure out what people's niches are, and I like to see that grow. For Brooke with the director of communications, even though it maybe wasn't what she wanted initially, now I bet you she could tell you DOC is perfect for her. She loves the social media. She loves getting in contact with people. She's a rock star at it. She amazes me every day. So find something that has that little bit of like, what am I really good at, and what do I really see myself succeeding in? What can I bring to the board through that position?
Yeah, and I'll add on to that as well. So definitely, as Jillian said, try and look through those position descriptions and find something that piques your interest. But once you've done that, reach out to that current board member. All of our contact information is listed on the current student page under leadership, and all of our emails are under there. And I encourage you to reach out to that particular board member and to kind of gauge what their current description of that position is, because it is an ever-evolving thing. So just talk to them and say, hey, this is why I think I would be good for this position. What do you think about it? That's what I did when I originally was looking at even running for the Student Assembly Board of Directors. I talked to, I think, 4 or 5 of that current board's members, and I said, I'm thinking about your position, and this is why. And they were able to give me some guidance in terms of, these are the skills that you say that you have. These are the skills for the position. And they can kind of bounce around and say, this might be best for you, or they can direct you to someone else and say, through your communication, I've seen that, you seem to be more fit for one position rather than the other. But again, it comes down to just turning in your application, throwing a position on there, and then we'll get to know you from there. And things usually turn out very well when it's left up to the nominating committee, I will say.
We do have a phenomenal nominating committee, I must say. So guys, we have about 5 minutes left. So if one of you kind of want to take the reins and just give everyone who's listening just what their next steps would be between now and July 15th, and then if they are contacted for an interview, a little bit about that and the slating process, just a little bit of timeline between now and NSC.
Absolutely. Jillian, if you don't mind, I'll jump on and wrap this up. So for anyone that has any interest after talking tonight, I encourage you to do two things when you get off this chat. One is to email one of us. Our contact information, we'll post it on Twitter as well, but email either Jillian, Scott, or I, and just let us know, hey, I'm interested in running. I just want to put my name out there, just want to make sure that I'm in contact with you about that. And then the second thing I recommend is just go ahead and take a look at the application. Download the forms that are on there and just kind of start brainstorming your ideas of what you want to put in your application. You know, I took about 3 weeks to fill mine out, but that's only because I kind of would just do a little bit and then step back. It's obviously able to be done a lot quicker than that, but you have a month to fill that application out. Again, those are due on July 15th. Email those to studentassembly@apta.org. All the contact information is on that elections page. From there, one of the nominating committee members will be in contact with you regarding further steps. If you do receive an interview, those are going to happen probably in about in August. We're in contact with you. We're flexible with those interviews. They're all conducted via video chat. So that's either Skype or Google Hangout. We'll figure that out along the way. And then from there, about a week after your interview, we typically release the slate. From there, you have about a month and a half where we'll do kind of a candidate webinar. We'll just send you some emails to prep you for NSC, just kind of your next steps and what your itinerary is going to be at National Student Conclave. And then the big event happens. National Student Conclave at the end of October. Again, that's in Omaha this year. Registration is going to be opening soon, so check that out on the APTA website as well. And your elections are going to happen there. So we have a candidate orientation first thing, that first day at NSC, to kind of let you know and give you the ropes of what the next couple of days are going to look like and let you meet all of the other candidates as well. And the events happen from there with elections happening on Saturday. Again, that's happening via electronic voting this year. And then transitions would happen on Sunday. I do want to add one more point here as we're getting towards the end. Brooke, you can yell at me if I go too long. I just want to say
2 minutes.
I encourage you to just put your name in the bucket. Whether you're slated, whether you're elected, it is an experience that you do not want to miss out on. Just the connections that you're able to make and just the confidence that you're able to gain by putting yourself out there and running for a national position, I think is unbelievable. And it shows just a lot that you're willing to do for your profession, to put yourself out there as a student, because it is a tough thing to do. And something I recommend that you do is maybe even reach out to some big board members. You know, they've all been there, and they would all be willing to share their experiences with you in terms of whether they were elected or not. It's always worth the experience. And I just want to say thank you to all of you that are considering this, because it is a huge commitment, but I promise you it's the best thing you'll ever do.
I completely agree. So I just tweeted out these guys' handles. Please reach out to our nominating committee if you guys are interested in running for the board, or you think you may be, or you're just ready to kind of take the next step and just get involved in even a smaller role. You can find their contact information on apta.org/studentassembly if you're not using Twitter. And that's it. The applications are live, and they're due July 15th. So if you guys have any further questions. What did you say? I'm sorry?
I said make our job hard. Let's get those applications in.
That's right. We want everyone to apply. We want there to be so many people that these guys aren't sleeping. So we will see you guys next month. Stay tuned to see what the topic for next month, what it's going to be, and I will post that soon. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.